This is a fantastic choice for a deep dive. The Housemaid by Freida McFadden is a masterclass in pacing and psychological manipulation, making it the perfect candidate for a high-engagement podcast episode. Since you require a script of approximately 5,800 to 7,000 words for a 20-minute delivery, I will provide the first half of the script here, Part 1. This section establishes the hook, the atmosphere, the characters, and the initial build-up of tension. Please let me know when you are ready for Part 2, which will cover the massive plot twists, the thematic analysis, and the final takeaway. Podcast script: The Secrets Behind the Door. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, we are dissecting a book that has absolutely exploded on social media and stayed at the top of the charts for years. If you spent any time on Book Talk or browsing psychological thrillers, you've seen this cover, the watchful eye peering through a keyhole. It's a story about class, secrets, and the lengths people will go to for a fresh start. Whether you're a die-hard thriller fan or someone looking for a page-turner that actually lives up to the hype, this episode is for you. By the time we finish today, we're going to understand why the domestic thriller genre is more popular than ever, how McFadden uses our own biases to trick us, and why the darkest secrets are often kept in the brightest kitchens. Let's set the stage. Meet Millie Calloway. Millie is desperate. She's been living out of her car, her bank account is a joke, and she has a criminal record that makes finding a job nearly impossible. She's a woman on the edge, looking for one person to say yes and give her a second chance. And that person is Nina Winchester. Nina is everything Millie isn't. She's stunningly beautiful, incredibly wealthy, and lives in a gorgeous mansion with her handsome, successful husband, Andrew, and their daughter, Celia. When Nina hires Millie to be their live-in housemaid, it feels like Millie has won the lottery. She gets a roof over her head, a steady paycheck, and a chance to disappear into the shadows of someone else's life. But as soon as Millie moves in, the dream starts to sour. The house itself is a character in this book. It's grand and imposing, but for Millie, it's a gilded cage, specifically her room. It's a tiny attic space, barely big enough for a bed. The door locks only from the outside. Think about that. You go to sleep every night knowing that if someone decided to keep you there, you'd have no way out. It's the ultimate loss of agency. And then there's Nina. Nina is a lot. One day she's sweet and giving Millie her old designer clothes. The next day she's screaming about a smudge on a window or accusing Millie of things that never happened. She seems mentally unstable, perhaps even abusive. She makes a mess just to watch Millie clean it up. She's the boss from hell, and yet Millie can't leave, because where would she go? Back to her car? Back to prison? This is where the psychological tension begins to boil. We see the world through Millie's eyes. We feel her frustration, her fear, and her growing attraction to Andrew Winchester. Andrew is the perfect husband, kind, patient, and seemingly exhausted by his wife's erratic behavior. He's the victim in Millie's eyes. He's the Prince Charming trapped in a tower with a madwoman. And we, the readers, or in this case the listeners, are right there with her, rooting for them to find a way out together. But here is where McFadden is brilliant. She plays on the trope of the unreliable narrator and the damsel in distress. We think we know what story we're in. We think this is a story about a poor girl being bullied by a rich, crazy woman while falling for a handsome man. It's a classic setup. But in a domestic thriller, the classic setup is usually a trap. The atmosphere is thick with what I call suburban Gothic energy. It's the feeling that behind the manicured lawns and the expensive Italian marble countertops, something is rotting. Millie starts finding things, small things, strange occurrences that don't add up. Why does the Italian gardener look at her with such pity? Why does the neighbor across the street keep trying to warn her? Why does Nina seem to know things she shouldn't?
It's the boiling frog effect. The heat rises so slowly that Millie and we don't realize how much danger she's actually in until the water is already at a bubble. Before we dive into the moment the floor falls out from under Millie, let's take a quick breather. If you're enjoying this breakdown of the shadows lurking in high-end real estate, please take a moment to follow us on your podcast app. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star review goes a long way in helping us stay out of the attic and on the airwaves. It's the best way to support the show and ensure we keep bringing you the best book breakdowns every week. Now, let's talk about the turning point. Up until the middle of the book, you are firmly on Millie's side. You want her to succeed. You want her to find happiness with Andrew. You might even find yourself hating Nina. But then McFadden does something daring. He flips the perspective. Suddenly, we aren't looking at the house from the maid's quarters anymore. We're inside the master bedroom. We're seeing the world through Nina's eyes. And let me tell you, the view from the top is very, very different. Everything you thought you knew about the crazy wife and the perfect husband starts to dissolve. This is the genius of the book's structure. It forces us to confront our own prejudices. We assumed Millie was the victim because she was poor. We assumed Nina was the villain because she was wealthy and difficult. But what if the person holding the key isn't the one in control? What if the attic wasn't designed to keep Millie in, but to keep something else out? As we move into the second act, the pace shifts from a slow-burn psychological drama into a frantic, high-stakes race for survival. The secrets of the Winchester family are revealed to be much darker than simple infidelity or a bad temper. We're talking about a level of calculated cruelty that makes the House of Horrors trope feel terrifyingly real. One of the most chilling elements of this part of the book is the concept of gaslighting. We see how easy it is to make someone doubt their own reality when they have nowhere else to go. Millie is trapped not just by a locked door, but by her own past and her lack of options. It's a haunting reminder of how vulnerability can be weaponized.
We have arrived at the part of the story where everything you thought was true turns out to be a carefully constructed lie. We just finished talking about Nina's erratic behavior and Millie's growing bond with Andrew, but now the perspective shifts. The book hands the microphone to Nina Winchester, and the air in the room suddenly gets a lot colder. When we see the world through Nina's eyes, we realize she isn't the villain. She's a survivor. We learn that Andrew Winchester, the perfect husband, the man who seemed like a victim, is actually a monster. He is a master manipulator who has spent years systematically breaking Nina down. That crazy behavior Millie witnessed, it wasn't mental illness. It was a reaction to extreme, calculated domestic abuse. Think about the psychological horror of that realization. Andrew doesn't just hit, he plays games. He uses the attic room as a literal torture chamber for his wives. And yes, I said wives, plural. We discover that there were women before Nina, and there were women before Millie. The house isn't just a home, it's a hunting ground. This is where Freida McFadden turns the housemaid trope on its head. Nina didn't hire Millie because she needed a cleaner. She hired Millie because she saw Millie's criminal record. She knew Millie had been to prison for something violent. Nina didn't hire a maid. She hired an assassin. She hired someone she hoped would be strong enough to do what she couldn't, stop Andrew once and for all. The tension shifts from, will Millie get caught, to can these two women survive each other and the man in the middle? It's a brilliant exploration of female solidarity in the darkest possible circumstances. It moves away from the women fighting over a man cliché and turns into a high-stakes chess match where the prize is your life. As the story reaches its boiling point, Millie finds herself trapped in that tiny attic room, but this time, the door is locked, and Andrew's mask has completely fallen away.
The scenes in the attic are claustrophobic and visceral. McFadden writes with a rhythm that mimics a racing heartbeat, short sentences, sharp actions, and a sense of impending doom. But Millie Calloway is not a victim. That's the core of her character. Her past, the very thing that made her unhireable, is exactly what gives her the edge. She knows how to survive in a cage. She knows that when you are backed into a corner, you don't plead, you strike. The climax is a whirlwind of violence and poetic justice. Without giving away every single drop of blood, let's just say that the attic room, designed to be a place of suffering, becomes the site of a very different kind of ending. The housemaid isn't just there to clean up the dust, she's there to clean up the Winchester's mess. And then there's the ending. Just when you think the story has wrapped up, McFadden gives us one final twist, a glimpse into Millie's future. We realize that Millie has found a new calling. She isn't going back to a normal life. She has become a sort of dark guardian angel, seeking out other perfect households, where a wife might need a very specific kind of help. So, why does this book resonate so deeply in 2026? First, it taps into our collective obsession with the perfect life we see on social media. We are constantly shown the marble countertops, the beautiful families, and the designer clothes. The housemaid reminds us that the more perfect the image, the more effort it takes to hide the cracks. Second, it deals with the reality of being unseen. As a maid, Millie is invisible. People talk in front of her as if she's furniture. They leave their secrets out in the open. There is a quiet power in being the person everyone ignores. To wrap things up, here's your housemaid survival guide. First, never trust a room that locks from the outside. If the architecture feels like a prison, it probably is. Second, believe women. When you see a crazy wife, look closer at the perfect husband who is telling you she's crazy. And third, your past doesn't just define your mistakes, it defines your strength. What others see as a flaw might be the tool that saves your life. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the hallways of the Winchester Mansion. It's been a wild ride of twists, turns, and heavy realizations. If this episode made you look at your neighbors a little differently, share it with a friend, but maybe don't tell them your secrets just yet. If you have a book you want us to deconstruct next, send us a message on our social channels. We love hearing what's keeping you up at night. Until next time, keep your eyes open, keep your doors locked, and remember, the help sees everything.